Hey everybody, I'm going to take a turn and do a completely different video. This is going to be on reselling. Alright, so we don't have any products. There's some cabbies back there that we sold. We're not going to talk about any of them. We're going to talk about reselling. And reselling as it appears versus how it really is. And I'm going to tell you this off the bat, is that not everything I'm going to say here is going to apply to all of you. Most of you, more than likely, but not all of you. There's going to be exceptions to the rules, and that's fine. Most of this is my opinion. But it's an opinion I've formed over the course of several years. And it holds true every time. So that's what we're going to go over. We're going to go over, you know, being a full-time reseller or being a reseller that depends on that income. So meaning I have a full-time job, but I depend on the fact that I get X amount of dollars from reselling. The people that do this just for a hobby, none of this is going to apply to you. I'm sorry, but it's just not. You know, maybe if you're transitioning or if you're starting to push to get out of your 9-to-5 job and into reselling, then this is going to apply in the future, or it's going to, you know, help you get there. But what I'm going to tell you is the straight dope, I guess, or the straight, I want to say the S word, but I'm not going to. It's going to be how we got here and how we continue to maintain it. And this is just stuff that we've learned. So that's what we're going to talk about. So let's get into it. Reselling looks a lot different than it is. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is people like myself on this platform make it look a lot easier than it is. And that's fine. You know, it shouldn't look terribly difficult. But that facade gives people an unrealistic expectation going into this. We did it. Same thing applied to us. We saw many people just walking into thrift stores and walking out with thousands of dollars. And they would publish videos every other day, and every other day something would, and it was, to us, it looked as if things were just growing on trees out there, and it was just, you know, you walk into a thrift store and you walk out with thousands of dollars worth of merchandise, and I paid $10 for it all. That's not the reality. As much as I want to tell you it is, it's not. Is it the reality that you can go into thrift stores and make money? Yeah, absolutely. We do it every day. But we're focused in on a lower side of things. I'm not walking into a thrift store expecting that I'm going to stumble across a $300 shirt for $10. That's never my expectations. If it's there, I'm happy. But it's never an expectation. I have an expectation of going in and buying things for $3 and $4 and selling them for $15 or $20. That's my expectation, and that's what we look for. That's just the reality. And I find it to be a reality no matter where we go. So it's not like I'm using my area, Pittsburgh, as an area that, oh, well, this is what happens in Pittsburgh. No, we travel and we go to thrift stores in other areas, and it's the same there. Now, granted, maybe it's different in, like, you know, remote regions of the Pacific Northwest, or, you know, remote regions of the South, where maybe thrift stores don't have the same ability or don't care about, you know, what they're making. They're a charitable organization, and it's what they make, they make. So there are going to be exceptions, like I said, but that's the reality in the vast majority of the country, is that the thrift stores competitively price things. And yes, you can make money, but what you're looking for versus what's there is two totally different things. So what you're looking for is things that they're not really paying much attention to. So walking into a Goodwill, don't expect to walk out with a Nintendo GameCube for $5. It's just not going to happen unless you catch them, which does happen also. But that's not really the reality. So rule number one is, you know, tailor your expectations. Make sure you know what the reality of the situation is before you go running into this full steam. Another really good thing and a really good rule that we tend to live by, and what I tell everybody when they say, you know, give me one, I'm thinking about getting into reselling, what's your number one thing? this is always the case, is sell what you know. Everybody knows something. You have a niche, or you have something that you know in your head is something that's either valuable or something that you love. And we see it all the time. There are friends of ours that are into watchmaking. There are friends of ours that are into, 80s toys or collectibles or things like that. And they sell those effectively for two reasons. One, they know a lot about them, or they've done enough research to know a lot about them. And that's what we do. That's why the Cabbage Patches are the way they are, because Sarah knows them. Sarah loves them. Sarah cares about them and how they look going out. It's part of the reason Sarah gets premiums for things, because of who she is and the influence she has and the time she puts into them. So sell what you know. If you know coins, or if you know collectibles, sell collectibles. If you know postcards, sell postcards. Don't try to, watch YouTube and you see somebody picking up Grateful Dead t-shirts and selling those. Now, granted, if you know enough, go ahead and try it. But, don't chase everything you see. Just sell what you know. And if it's effective, you can build off of that and learn more. For example, I knew nothing about postcards when we first started selling. Zero. And I mean zero. I didn't even know people still looked at them. Because as a child, we would go somewhere and we'd buy postcards, but I never put together that people actually collect these things. And even going into reselling, still didn't even have a clue that postcards were a collectible item. Until I met a certain person. And they showed me that this is a niche. And that became a passion of mine, because I actually enjoyed the history. I enjoyed the listing of them. I enjoyed the research behind them. So it's not set in stone what your niche is going to be. It may change. And that's what happens. So sell what you know. That's number one piece of advice I always give to people, is don't chase everything you see the people on YouTube getting. Because again, what works for one person might not work for another. Use YouTube as a tool, because, and I do. I see people buy things and I go, oh, if I ever see something like that, I'll get it. A good example of that is old menus. We've sold many old menus, literally menus from restaurants, like that have been gone, or maybe just the same restaurant that's still there, but it's their menu from 1965. Would have never thought of that. And we saw a popular YouTuber buy them. I'll tell you who it is. It's Kevin, Commonwealth Flipper / Picker. I was watching one of his videos one day and he said, oh, look, old menus, they sell pretty well. And it just so happened like 3 weeks went by and one of our auctions had old menus, and we bought them. Cheap too, because nobody had a clue that these things were worth any money. I think we bought like 12 of them for $3 or something like that. So use it to your advantage, but don't chase it. Meaning, if you see stuff that we do all the time, don't just do what we do. Do what you do and use what knowledge you get from us to kind of supplement. Make sense? Good. Another thing we talk about frequently, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves. It drives me mental. And granted, we don't do it as much anymore because of what we buy. We buy a lot of the same things, so we already know. But look things up. Comp things. I mean, go into eBay and physically look up what they're selling for. And be honest with yourself about the product you have. Want an example? Okay. Here's an example. It's a Cabbage Patch, of course. This Cabbage Patch has been redone. Sarah put pajamas on it and everything. Clean the face. Defuzz the hair. Put this bow in her head. Yeah. And, probably fix something maybe on the body or whatever. This Cabbage Patch, naked, with nothing on it, is not worth what Sarah sold it for. Does that make sense? Meaning, if you take this Cabbage Patch and you go, oh, I'm going to look it up, and you find this version of the same Cabbage Patch sitting online that sold for $25, or $27 is what this one sold for. Yours is maybe not this one. Yours doesn't have any clothes on it, we'll say, or has a big mark on its face, or the hair's all messed up, or something to that effect. Be honest with yourself about what you got. Because if you're trying to get this money for something that doesn't look exactly like this. It's not going to happen. So comp things, look things up, but more importantly, be honest with yourself about what you got. If you find a Nintendo GameCube and you see a bunch of comps for $135, complete, working, whatever, with 2 controllers, and you have one that is missing a wire and has 1 controller, it's not the $125 one. It's the $65 one. Make sense? Look things up. The other one, and this one's going to be oddly self-defeating, but I'm going to do it anyways. I despise the word bolo. And if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that. I see a lot of people, you know, Bolo Alert, be on the lookout, look for these, look for these. Don't chase bolos. Just don't. Because you're going to go broke. If you are going sourcing and your sole thing is to find bolos that you've seen on YouTube or bolos that you've seen from Facebook groups or something to that effect, you are not going to make it. It's plain and simple. It's just, you're not going to make it. You need to have what everybody, in another phrase I can't stand, is bread and butter items, which is things that you know sell frequently and often. That's the whole key to this, is frequency. Often. Things that you know will sell often. It's the sole reason we sell postcards, because they sell frequently and they sell often, and it's easy. If you're going in looking for Nintendo GameCubes, or you're going in looking for something, you know, Pokemon cards or Magic, rare items that are, you know, $100+ items, this isn't going to work. Unless, again, unless it's a hobby. It's something that you want to do on the side. That, you know, when I find something, I'll just list it. And I don't have a very large store. But if your ultimate goal is to pull away from a 9-to-5 job and become full-time, or even if it's keep your 9-to-5 job and rely heavily on the extra income you make, chasing bolos is just not going to help you. And it's not going to work. So don't chase them. Don't buy into the fact that they're laying around everywhere, because they're not. You're going to find your, you know, core items much easier and much quicker than you're going to find $100, $200, $300, $400, $500 items. So don't chase bolos. We've said this before. I have a little list here. It's very uncommon that I make lists for videos, but this one was a tough one to make. And if you're here right now, you know, I might as well, because I don't do this enough. If you're still here and you're still listening, you might as well hit the like button, because that would really help me out. And if you're enjoying this, subscribe to the channel. That'd be cool too. All right, moving right along. What works for one person doesn't always work for others. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's different demographics. You know, we in Pittsburgh have the ability to source a lot of older things fairly quickly. And that's because of the population in the area we live in. We live in what was, and what still is, not so much anymore as it was, but it used to be a very blue-collar town. So a lot of steel mills, a lot of, you know, construction, a lot of, you know, blue-collar, work with your hands, be grateful for what you have type area. And that kind of mentality leads to a lot of people trying to be self-sufficient, or trying to be, how can I say this nicely? It's very hard to say this about a city that I love, but it led to a lot of hoarding. That's the easiest way to say it. Why? I haven't made the connection 100% between blue-collar town and hoarding, but it seems like that people bought in bulk when they could afford it. So it seems like what people did in this area is that they, you know, had a certain amount of money, and then they just bought things, and then they waited, and then did it again, and then waited. So it kind of leads to a hoarding. I don't know why, but we do have an older population. So we do see a lot of older things coming out of this area. You see us sell sheets, like new in-package sheets all the time. And I did a video on this, and it sucks, so it hasn't come out. But, you know, we do find a lot of that kind of thing. So your demographic is going to dictate to you. We have friends on the West Coast that are successful in sourcing shoes. We have friends, you know, further south from us, successful sourcing shoes. This area doesn't allow us to be successful sourcing shoes. Our thrift stores are overpriced. Most people, you know, if they're selling private collections, are overpriced. It just is not an area that we can come up with shoes consistently enough to be able to sell them. And it's, so that's kind of an example of, you know, what works for one may not work for another, you know. And there's people that have connections, you know, with certain businesses that get used shoes easily. We don't have that around here. Now, could we eventually come up with that? Yeah, it's possible. Our store is adapted over time because of what we can get our hands on. So what works for one doesn't always work for another. Make sense? Good. The last thing we're going to talk about is the way you will make it in this business. And the easiest thing you can do, I guarantee it, if you do this consistently, it'll work. What is it? List your items. When you buy them, either get them in rotation to be listed or list them. One of the two. Sitting there in your garage or sitting there in your shed or sitting there wherever your death pile is, another term I can't stand, is not going to do you any good sitting there. It's great. I got this $300 hat. Where is it? It's sitting in a basement in a bin waiting to be listed. Not doing you any good there. So list it. List, and keep listing. Keywords and titles and how to properly take pictures and that kind of thing. All of that is a facade. It's secondary to listing your items and getting it on eBay. Now, granted, you want to make sure you properly describe your item, but in the same respect, putting the 38 keywords that I saw off of an Instagram reel from some big YouTuber isn't going to help you sell more as listing your items. If you bought it, list it. If you need to put it in a rotation and take your time, fine. But just make sure you have the ability to list and you actually take the time to list your items, because if you're not listing, you're not making any money. That's pretty simple, right? Just like if I own a restaurant, if I don't have food, I'm not going to sell said food to people. It's the same concept. As dumb as that just sounded, it's just as dumb to have bought $30 worth of stuff and let it sit around doing nothing. So that's the easiest thing and the most complicated for some people, is to get things listed. And I understand it. You know, we all have lives. We all have things that come up. But if you use your time effectively and wisely enough, getting things onto your eBay store, you will make money. It's that simple. So list. I'm going to leave you with one final thought. And this is hypothetical, but it's something we do effectively. And you know, it might give you an idea that maybe you haven't thought of yet. But expand your business. Find new avenues that you can get to bring business in, or to, you know, maybe expand out and be able to source. That is something that we don't talk enough about. If you go through YouTube, you see garage sales, thrift stores, and you do see some live auctions. But for the vast majority of sourcing, people believe that there's only one or two avenues, and that's thrift stores, garage sales. And then people that have some courage maybe will go to a live auction, but there are other avenues out there. There are other ways to get your hands on products, especially lower end. So expand out. Start looking for other avenues, maybe other paths to take. Our store is adapted over time, and if you follow this channel for any length of time, you know we started off selling things like jeans and clothing and so forth and so forth. It's because that's what we had access to, and we could find it frequently. It had to change over time because we lost access to those certain types of things, or they were dwindling down, or the prices were becoming higher, or something to that effect. So, garbage truck just drove by. You do have to adapt. And you are going to make changes in your store. What your store looks like today, it may not look like this time next year. So adapt a little bit more and find other avenues. I really hope this video wasn't just a rant fest for me, which it wasn't. And I hope you enjoyed it. It was a tough one to make. I probably have about 30 or 40 outtakes on this one. So a little difficult, but fun nonetheless. If you guys are still here, hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. And if you haven't, and you made it this far, and you want to see more like this, because I'm probably going to have to do a follow-up to this one, hit the subscribe button. See you next time. Bye.
Good day, sir!